Okay, so continuing on with chemical formulas. We're now going to look at another type of formula that we often see, and that deals with ions. So all an ion is a charged particle. And the way that we represent something as an ion so we represent that by indicating the charge in the top right part of the symbol. So, for example, the sodium ion, which is, if you take table salt, which is sodium chloride, dissolve it in water, you get sodium ions and chloride ions. And we write it this way: Na with a little plus, Cl with a little minus. You notice the plus is in the top right corner, the negative is in the top right corner. This plus indicates that sodium has a +1 charge. This negative indicates that chloride, which is the ion, has a -1 charge. So in this case, a little bit more simple, but let's look at some other ions that we might see. An example that we did last time was with calcium hydroxide. If we dissolve that in water, one of the ions that we get the calcium ion, which is Ca, and as an ion, you'll see this written two ways. You'll either see it written 2+ or Ca +2. Sometimes 2+, sometimes +2. But the important thing to remember is that if it's in this top right corner, top right part of the symbol, that is the charge. Not how many, but the charge. If we want to know if we want to write how many of them, if we had 2 of them, for example, that would be down here in the bottom right. We're not talking about number right here, we're talking about charge. So, last time, a couple of the other examples that we talked about were, we had mentioned phosphate. Sorry, we didn't mention phosphate, but I'll go ahead and start out now. So phosphate is PO4, and phosphate has a -3 charge. And we see this written 3 negative or PO4 -3. You'll see it written both ways, 3 negative or -3. So, when we look at this, PO4 3 negative, PO4 -3, there are 2 things that go on with that. Up here in the top right, this tells us that it has a charge of -3. And what is PO4? Well, let's take a look at it. P is phosphorus. And O, well, we know O is oxygen. And how many oxygen are there? We see that we have a 4 here, and that 4 tells us how many oxygens. So, when we see PO4 3 negative, we know that we have 1 phosphorus, 4 oxygen, and a negative 3 charge. Again, we see that this 4 is right there, and the charge is there up top. So another example, just to show you, is with carbonate, which is one that we've talked about a little bit before. So carbonate is CO3, 2 negative, or CO3 negative 2. C is our carbon, O is our oxygen. We see that we have a charge of negative 2, and then this 3 down in the bottom tells us that we have 3 oxygens. So carbonate, CO3, 2 negative, 1 carbon, three oxygen, negative 2 charge. This 3, because we have a 3 down to the bottom right, and there's our charge.